Case number 1, Lamor Whitehead, the Bling Bishop. In the digital age, the pulpit has become a stage, and the prophet has become a brand. In the Brooklyn archive of the 2020s, no individual embodied this transformation more than Bishop Lamor Whitehead. He was the Bling Bishop, a man who claimed that God wants you to be flashy. He drove a $300,000 Rolls-Royce, wore $5,000 Gucci suits, and sat at the right hand of the mayor of New York. But in July 2022, the visual archive of success was shattered on a Sunday morning. While his service was being live-streamed to thousands, Whitehead was robbed at gunpoint of $1 million in jewelry. To the world, it was a tragedy. To the FBI, it was the cognitive catalyst that revealed a different kind of theft. Tonight, we open the Holy Double Life Archive. 10 names, 10 professional betrayals. Case number 1 begins now. To understand the individual evil of Lamor Whitehead, you have to understand the psychology of the image. Whitehead understood that in Tier 1 urban markets, wealth is authority. He didn't just preach prosperity, he performed it. In criminal psychology, we analyze status-based grooming. Whitehead built an archive of influence by associating himself with power. He claimed to be a man of the people while living in a multi-million-dollar mansion in New Jersey. He told his followers that his gold chains were God's favor. But the archive reveals that the favor wasn't divine, it was financed through an intricate web of individualized extortion. He used his pulpit not to save souls, but to acquire the life savings of the very people who trusted him to guard their spirits. This is the heart of the holy double life. In 2021, a parishioner named Pauline Anderson approached the bishop. She was 57 years old, a woman whose archive of labor had resulted in a $90,000 retirement fund. She wanted to buy a house. She trusted Whitehead to help her. In forensic profiling, we look at exploitative mentorship. Whitehead told Pauline that she couldn't get a traditional loan because of her credit. He told her, "Give the money to me. I will use my connections to buy the house for you." He used the cognitive load of her desperation to bypass her common sense. Once he had the $90,000, the spiritual father vanished. He didn't buy a house, he used the money to pay for his own luxury car payments and expensive dinners. When she asked for the money back, he told her it was an investment and that her faith was weak. Why was Whitehead so confident? Because he had a sovereign shield. He was a close personal friend of Eric Adams. He used this archive of proximity to convince his victims that he was above the law. He claimed he could fix legal problems. He attempted to extort a businessman for $500,000, promising that his friendship with the mayor would provide governmental favors in return. In criminal psychology, this is authority mirroring. He wasn't just a preacher, he was a broker of influence. He used the digital noise of his social media presence to drown out the signal of his criminal activity, believing that his status made him an individual too big to fail. The archive finally broke in 2024. The FBI didn't care about his suits or his cars. They cared about the wire archive. They tracked the $90,000. They tracked the extortion attempts. In the courtroom, the Bling bishop didn't act like a man of God. He acted like a narcissist under siege. Watch his body language in the trial clips. He rolls his eyes. He scoffs at the prosecution. This is narcissistic immunity, the belief that the truth is whatever he says it is. Even when faced with the digital breadcrumbs of his own texts and bank records, he maintained a wall of defiance, claiming he was a victim of a witch hunt. Prosecutor: Bishop, did you use Pauline Anderson's money to buy a Gucci suit? Whitehead: coldly, I am a man of substance. My lifestyle is a testimony. You are attacking the church, not me. On June 17, 2024, the double life of Lamor Whitehead reached its final chapter. He was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison for wire fraud, attempted extortion, and lying to the FBI. The judge stated that Whitehead's crimes were particularly egregious because he used the pulpit as his hunting ground. He died to his old life, not through prayer, but through a forensic audit. He remains the grand finale of the modern Bling prophet. He proved that in the age of 4K, the visual mask of wealth is the most effective way to hide an individual evil until the archive of the bank finally speaks. Whitehead used Bling to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need a Rolls-Royce. He used Hollywood glamour and the cool pastor persona. In 2020, the leader of the celebrity church in Manhattan was erased from his own organization. He was a man who preached to the elite, while his private archive contained a series of double lives that involved secret apartments and a narcissistic control that finally collapsed under the weight of the Hillsong empire.
Case number 2, Carl Lentz, the celebrity pastor. In the 21st century, the mask of sanity has been redesigned. It no longer wears a suit and tie. It wears skinny jeans and tattoos. In the Manhattan archive of the 2010s, Carl Lentz was the apostle of the elite. He was the founder of Hillsong NYC, a church that functioned more like an exclusive nightclub. He was the personal advisor to Justin Bieber, the spiritual confidant to NBA stars, and the individual face of a multi-billion-dollar global brand. He told thousands of young digital natives that they could have it all, the fame, the wealth, and the favor of God. But the archive of his private life was a dark parallel. A world of secret Manhattan apartments, systematic affairs, and a narcissistic control that turned his staff into a human resource for his own ego. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a cool persona is the ultimate camouflage for a professional betrayal. This is the story of the celebrity pastor. To understand the individual evil of Carl Lentz, you have to understand the psychology of the gatekeeper. Hillsong NYC wasn't just a church, it was an SECTUS archive. Lentz built a VIP section for celebrities, separating the iconic from the ordinary. In criminal psychology, we analyze association branding. By surrounding himself with celebrities, Lentz made himself indictment-proof. He believed his proximity to power gave him a sovereign immunity. He spent church funds on luxury hotels, $1,000 sneakers, and a lifestyle archive that mirrored the stars he preached to. But the cognitive load of his image required a secret release. Behind the stage, Lentz was building a secret life, an archive of infidelities and emotional extraction that he believed the noise of his fame would forever conceal. The archive cracked open in November 2020. A woman named Raneen Karim came forward with a story that destroyed the moral architecture of the church. She claimed that for months she had been involved with a man she knew only as Carl, a sports agent. This is the individual evil of the identity split. Lentz didn't just have an affair, he de-indexed himself. He told Raneen he was a sports agent to avoid the archive of his reputation. He used a secret Manhattan apartment, paid for by church resources, as his private sanctuary of sin. When the truth emerged, the cool pastor didn't repent, he managed. In forensic linguistics, we look at his initial statement, "I was unfaithful." It was a minimization tactic, using a single word to cover an archive of systematic deception. The investigation into Lentz's double life revealed a deeper, more systemic evil. He hadn't just betrayed his wife, he had betrayed the archive of service. In forensic profiling, we look at exploitative narcissism. Internal reports from 2022 and 2023 revealed that Lentz treated his volunteer staff like indentured servants. They were forced to walk his dog, pick up his dry cleaning, and manage his personal archive of whims, all while being told they were serving God. This is cognitive enslavement, using spiritual rewards to extract free physical labor. He turned a community of faith into a support system for his own stardom. In the modern archive, the Interrogation is a media special. In 2023, Carl Lentz appeared in several documentaries to tell his truth. Watch his performative humility. He uses soft-focus vulnerability. He talks about his brokenness and his childhood trauma. In forensic psychology, this is victim shielding, an attempt to redirect the cognitive load of his actions onto his own history. He doesn't talk about the money or the volunteers, he talks about his feelings. He is an individual who is still directing the narrative of his own downfall. Lentz, documentary clip. I was a man who lost his way. I was a man who let the lights get too bright. I'm just trying to find the archive of who I was before. Carl Lentz was fired in November 2020. The NYC branch of Hillsong, once the crown jewel of the empire, collapsed. The archive of fame was replaced by an archive of lawsuits and institutional audits. He is the grand finale of the celebrity prophet. He proved that an individual can use aesthetics and fame to hide a massacre of the spirit. He turned the American dream into a spiritual nightmare, and his name remains a permanent warning in the archive of those who believe that a leather jacket is a substitute for a soul. Carl Lentz used fame to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need a leather jacket. He used the miracle baby ruse and a London flat. In the mid-2000s, a prophet in the UK convinced thousands of infertile women that he could give them miracle babies through prayer. He didn't just take their money, he was the individual architect of a global human trafficking archive, stealing infants from hospitals to deliver them to his followers.
Case number 3. Gilbert Deya, the baby snatcher. In the heart of London's immigrant community, there was a man who claimed to hold the master key to the laws of biology. For over a decade, Gilbert Deya was the prophet of the impossible. He told thousands of infertile and postmenopausal women that faith could override the archive of science. He promised them miracle babies, children born without medical intervention, appearing in the arms of the faithful after a simple prayer. He was an individual who built a global empire of hope, with branches in London, Birmingham, and Nairobi. But the archive of his miracles was actually a ledge of larceny. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that divine deliverance can be a front for the most heartless crime in the human experience, the systematic theft of infants. This is the story of the baby snatcher. To understand the individual evil of Gilbert Deya, you have to understand the psychology of the biological void. Deya targeted women who were desperate for motherhood, women whom science had told no. In criminal psychology, we analyze needs-based vulnerability. Deya built an archive of expectation. He told his followers to fly to Nairobi, Kenya. There, they were taken to secret clinics where they were told they were in labor. They were given spiritual medicines, drugs that induced nausea and abdominal swelling to provide the visual proof of pregnancy. This is somatic gaslighting.
He used cognitive load to make the women believe their own bodies were changing, when in reality, the miracle was being sourced from the archive of abduction in the back rooms of Kenyan hospitals. The archive cracked open in 2004. British social workers noticed a biological discrepancy. Women in their late 50s and 60s were returning from Kenya with newborn infants, claiming they had just given birth. The Metropolitan Police launched a forensic audit. They didn't listen to the testimonies. They looked at the DNA archive. They tested 21 miracle babies. The results were a zero match. Not one of the children was genetically related to the prophets who claimed them. This is the individual evil of the mechanism. He was stealing babies from poor mothers in Kenyan clinics and selling them to his wealthy UK followers for donations of up to £5,000 per child. He had turned human life into a spiritual commodity. Why did it take so long to catch him? Because Deya was a master of the legal loophole. For 13 years, he fought extradition from the UK to Kenya. In forensic profiling, we look at jurisdictional shielding. Deya claimed that his human rights would be violated in a Kenyan prison. He used the archive of the UK legal system to protect his own freedom while his victims were still waiting for justice. He portrayed himself as a victim of religious persecution, telling his London congregation that the devil was attacking the prophet. This is hero-victim reframing, a classic narcissistic tactic to redirect the cognitive load of his crimes onto his enemies. The archive finally reached its payoff in 2017. The UK courts ran out of patience. Deya was extradited to Kenya. In the interrogation and trial in Nairobi, he didn't act like a man of God. He acted like a businessman under audit. Watch his body language in the Kenyan courtroom. He scoffs at the witnesses. He claims the DNA archive was tampered with by the government. This is conspiracy deflection. He believed that because he had been a power player in London, the laws of his home country couldn't touch him. Prosecutor: Gilbert, where did the babies come from? Give the mothers their names back. Deya, coldly: the babies came from God. If the science says otherwise, then the science is flawed. I am a prophet. I do not answer to your machines. In a shocking twist to the archive, in July 2023, a Kenyan magistrate acquitted Gilbert Deya of 5 counts of stealing 5 children due to insufficient evidence. The archive of witness testimony had faded over 20 years. Many of the original victims were gone, but the DNA remained. While he escaped the theft charges, the individual evil was already recorded in the history of the UK and Kenya. He remains the brand finale of the biological prophet. He proved that an individual can use faith to hide a human trafficking ring in plain sight for decades. Gilbert Deya used a miracle baby to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need a nursery. He used the Chicago Pressroom and the AK-47. In the late 80s, a Bible-quoting employee returned to his workplace with a weapon of war. He didn't just want a paycheck, he wanted an apocalypse. He used a religious archive of vengeance to justify a massacre that remains the darkest chapter in the history of the American press.
Case 4. Joseph Wesbecker, the Pressroom Executioner.
In the 1980s, the American workplace was a cathedral of industry. The printing press was its heartbeat, a place of ink, steel, and a shared archive of labor. But in Louisville, Kentucky, that heartbeat was being monitored by a man who believed he was an instrument of divine vengeance. Joseph Wesbecker was a 47-year-old pressman, a man who had spent 20 years in the bowels of the Standard Gravure plant. To his co-workers, he was a troubled soul on disability leave. To the world, he was the face of the first modern workplace massacre. But the archive of his final months revealed a man who had traded his toolkit for a Bible and an AK-47. He didn't see a firing, he saw a holy war. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a professional grudge can be turned into a religious crusade. This is the story of the Pressroom executioner. To understand the individual evil of Joseph Wesbecker, you have to understand the psychology of the displaced worker. Wesbecker felt that the plant was a living archive of his failures. He blamed the company for his physical ailments. He blamed his bosses for his psychological erasure. In criminal psychology, we analyze resentment hoarding. Wesbecker didn't have a snap, he had a construction. By 1988, he was on long-term disability for depression. He spent his days in a small, dark apartment, building a vengeance archive. He filled notebooks with Bible verses about the great cleansing and the destruction of the wicked. He began to view his former supervisors not as managers, but as demonic entities who needed to be purged. He was using spiritual justification to bypass the cognitive load of his violent fantasies. In 1989, a new variable entered the archive. Wesbecker was one of the first individuals in the U.S. to be prescribed a revolutionary new drug, Prozac. In forensic profiling, we look at biological catalysts. Wesbecker's defense would later argue that the medication disinhibited his rage. It removed the moral guardrails that had kept him in check for 20 years. While the drug was meant to heal, in Wesbecker's brain, it functioned as a chemical accelerant for his religious delusions. He told his therapist he was feeling more energetic, but that energy was being funneled into the logistics of a massacre. He purchased a Chinese-made AK-47 and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, believing he was preparing for a divine strike. 8:30 a.m., Wesbecker entered the building through the employee elevator. He didn't go to his old locker, he went to the executive offices. This is the individual evil of targeted erasure. He didn't fire at random. He sought out the men who had signed his disability papers. He walked through the printing press, the very place where he had spent half his life, and executed 8 of his former colleagues. 12 others were wounded. In the archive of the survivors, Wesbecker was described as calm. He didn't shout, he didn't scream. He moved with the procedural precision of a man who was simply finishing a long overdue task. He had turned the rhythm of the press into the rhythm of the execution. There was no interrogation for Joseph Wesbecker. As the police breached the 3rd floor, he turned his weapon on himself. The voice of vengeance went silent. The interrogation happened in his apartment. Police found his archive of finality, a suicide note, and a will. In these documents, he didn't apologize. He wrote about justice. He wrote that the company had stolen his soul and that he was simply taking it back. In criminal psychology, this is victim-offender reversal. He died believing he was the holy victim of a corporate machine, failing to see the archive of blood he had left on the pressroom floor. The archive of Joseph Wesbecker didn't close with his death. It led to a landmark 1994 trial. The families of the victims sued Eli Lilly, claiming the drug had created the monster. It was the first time biological defense was used on the national stage for a mass shooting. The jury ultimately found in favor of the drug company, but the case changed the way the archive of medical records is used in individual evil cases. It proved that in the modern era, the motive is often a complex mixture of theology, corporate stress, and chemistry. Joseph Wesbecker is the grand finale of the workplace prophet. He proved that an individual can harbor a secret malice for decades, using the noise of the job to hide a signal of destruction. Joseph Wesbecker used a rifle to settle a workplace grudge, but our next individual didn't need an AK-47. He used street magic and the spiritual high. In 2018, a modern prophet became a global sensation for healing people in the streets. He claimed to grow shortened legs and fix broken backs with a touch, until the archive of the magician revealed that his divine power was actually a series of individual sleight-of-hand tricks designed to collect millions from the faithful.
Case number 5. Todd White, the Holy Illusionist. In the 21st century, the archive of the divine has moved from the cathedral to the sidewalk. We no longer look for miracles in ancient texts. We look for them in viral clips on our social feeds. And in the modern street prophet archive, no individual is more iconic than Todd White. He is the skater preacher, a man who looks more like a rock star than a minister. He claims to have an individual conduit to the Creator that allows him to physically alter the human body on camera. He has built a multi-million-dollar empire called Lifestyle Christianity on the visual proof of growing legs and popping shoulders. But the forensic archive reveals a different kind of power, not a divine intervention, but a masterclass in sleight of hand. A series of psychological and physical ruses that turn a street corner into a stage for a holy con. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a 4K camera is the ultimate tool for a modern illusionist. This is the story of Todd White. To understand the individual evil of Todd White, you have to understand the psychology of the rebrand. Most false prophets hide behind suits and titles. White hides behind relatability. In criminal psychology, we analyze persona mirroring. White tells an archive of redemption story, claiming he was a drug addict and a professional con artist before he found the light. But investigators and former associates suggest that the con artist never left. He simply found a tax-exempt niche. He built a visual archive of authenticity, the dreadlocks, the skateboards, the casual language, to bypass the cognitive defenses of a younger, skeptical Tier 1 audience. He wasn't just a preacher, he was a brand ambassador for the supernatural. Let's analyze the physical physics of White's most famous trick, the leg lengthening. In hundreds of videos, White is seen holding a person's feet and commanding one leg to grow to match the other. In forensic profiling, we look at somatic suggestion. White isn't growing bone, he is performing a classic heel slip magic trick. By slightly pulling the person's shoe off their heel and then pushing it back on while tilting the foot, he creates the visual illusion of growth. He uses linguistic overloading, shouting and praying rapidly to increase the cognitive load on the subject and the audience. The brain, overwhelmed by the noise and the physical manipulation, completes the image it wants to see. He isn't a healer, he is a biological magician. White's individual evil extends to the manipulation of sensation. He often performs the shoulder pop, where he claims to move a person's joints back into alignment through spiritual heat. In forensic psychology, this is the adrenaline bridge. By aggressively rubbing or slapping a painful joint, White triggers a localized adrenaline spike in the victim. For a few seconds, the pain disappears. The subject believes they are healed. They provide the visual archive of joy for the camera. But once the adrenaline fades, usually 30 minutes later, the pain returns. White is long gone by then, having already used the miracle to secure a donation or a follow on social media. He is harvesting the dopamine of his victims for his own archive of influence. In the archive of the con, the most dangerous moment is the direct challenge. When skeptics or former magicians confront White about his heel slip technique, he doesn't use logic, he uses spiritual shielding. Watch his body language in the confrontations. He uses narcissistic dismissal. He tells the challenger that they have a religious spirit or that they are attacking God's anointed. In forensic linguistics, this is externalized persecution. He turns a technical question into a spiritual war, effectively silencing the archive of reason. He believes his status as a holy individual makes him immune to the rules of evidence. Skeptic: Todd, I can see your thumb moving the shoe. That's a magic trick. White, smiling coldly: You're just looking for a reason to hate. You're trying to put God in a box. I don't need tricks. I have the truth. Todd White's individual evil has a very high payoff archive. His lifestyle Christianity organization has raised tens of millions of dollars. In 2020, in a moment of performative repentance, he admitted that his prosperity gospel teachings were wrong, only to continue his luxury lifestyle and street miracles weeks later. This is the pivot of survival. He realized that the Tier 1 audience was becoming wise to the old prosperity gospel. He re-indexed his message to sound more authentic, while the individual extraction of money remained exactly the same. He is a master of the adaptive ruse, proving that a false prophet can change their skin without ever changing their soul. Todd White is the grand finale of the digital illusionist. He proved that an individual can use street culture and sleight of hand to build a global archive of faith. Todd White used street magic to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need a trick. He used the corporate megachurch and the architecture of silence. In 2018, the father of the megachurch was brought down by an archive of whispers. He was a man who advised presidents and built the most influential church in America, until his private life revealed a narcissistic predator who used his professional status to build a secret archive of control that spanned 30 years.
Case number 6. Bill Hybels, the Willow Creek architect. In the 1970s, a man with a vision decided to redesign the experience of God. Bill Hybels didn't want a traditional church. He wanted a seeker-sensitive empire. He built Willow Creek, a multi-million-dollar campus in the Chicago suburbs that became the blueprint for the global megachurch movement. He founded the Global Leadership Summit, advising U.S. presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs on the archive of excellence. He was the individual icon of the successful Christian, a pilot, a sailor, and a master communicator. But the archive of his 30-year reign revealed a predatory architecture. A man who used the boardroom to hide a bedroom archive of systematic harassment and professional erasure. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a perfect organization can be the most effective way to hide a defective soul. This is the story of the Willow Creek architect. To understand the individual evil of Bill Hybels, you have to understand the psychology of the consumer prophet. Hybels realized that to attract the Tier 1 elite, he had to speak the language of efficiency. In criminal psychology, we analyze institutional narcissism. Hybels built an archive of perfection. Every service was timed to the second. Every volunteer was a human resource to be optimized. He created a culture where the brand of Willow Creek was more important than the individual. By making himself the indispensable architect of this brand, he created a zone of immunity. He was the boss who could never be fired and the prophet who could never be questioned. But the cognitive load of maintaining this corporate sainthood required a secret release, a private world of power dynamics that he believed his board of directors was too invested to ever see. The archive cracked open in March 2018. The Chicago Tribune published a bombshell investigation. For decades, a secret archive of allegations had been building behind the glass walls of South Barrington. Former staff members and female leaders, women whom Hybels had personally mentored, came forward with stories that defied the blue-chip image. They described a predatory protocol, private meetings in hotel rooms under the guise of leadership coaching, suggestive comments disguised as spiritual intimacy, and a systematic erasure of anyone who tried to set a boundary. In forensic profiling, we look at coercive mentorship. Hybels used his status as the father of the movement to bypass the threat detection of his subordinates. He turned his professional stature into a lethal snare for the archive of trust. Why didn't the system stop him? Because the system was Hybels-centric. In 2017, before the Tribune report, the church board conducted a private archive audit. In forensic psychology, this is institutional capture. The board hired an outside firm, but they controlled the flow of evidence. They interviewed the women, but concluded there was no misconduct. They released a statement clearing Hybels. They used cognitive dissonance to tell the congregation that the women were liars or confused. This is groupthink gaslighting. By protecting Hybels, the board was protecting their own archive of power. They realized that if the architect fell, the building would fall with him. The archive reached its sudden stop on April 10, 2018. Facing a total revolt from the younger generation of leaders, Hybels stood on his stage for the last time. In this final performance, he didn't act like a man of God. He acted like a terminated CEO. Watch his body language in the resignation clip. He uses aggressive victimhood. He doesn't apologize to the women. He blames the noise of the media for his departure. In forensic linguistics, we look at his use of passive voice. He spoke about clouds over the ministry, as if the individual evil was just a weather event he couldn't control. This is narcissistic detachment at the highest level. Hybels, 2018 clip. The charges against me are a distraction. My decision to leave is about the health of this church. I have always lived my life in the light. In reality, the light he lived in was a stage light designed to blind anyone who looked too closely at the archive of his actions. The fallout of case number 6 was systemic liquidation. Within months of Hybels' departure, the entire board of directors resigned. The Global Leadership Summit lost half its partners. The Archive of Excellence was revealed to be an archive of exploitation. Bill Hybels is currently 72 years old. He lives in a quiet retirement, a sovereign individual who has never faced a criminal court, but whose professional archive has been permanently erased. He proved that an individual can use corporate success to hide a massacre of the soul. He turned the American megachurch into a suburban trap, and his name remains a warning sign for those who believe that leadership is a substitute for character. Bill Hybels used a corporate mask to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need a skyscraper. She used the language of dreams and the Texas-New York pipeline. In 2023, a modern prophet was arrested for turning a Bible study into a slave colony. She didn't just take their time, she took their passports and their paychecks, creating a living archive of forced labor that shocked the Tier 1 world.
Case 7. Heeun, the Slave Prophet. New York City is a city of visible shadows. In the dense corridors of Queens and the luxury towers of Manhattan, millions of people move through the archive of ambition every day. But in 2023, the NYPD and the FBI discovered an archive of enslavement hidden behind the veneer of a Christian Bible study. Heeun, known to her followers as Sarah, was a charismatic religious leader who promised spiritual growth and a new life in America to young Korean immigrants. She didn't build a compound in the desert. She used the heights of Manhattan and the suburbs of New Jersey as her private colony.
She didn't use chains, she used the language of sacrifice. While she lived in luxury, her followers were working 18-hour days, their paychecks and their very identities stolen by the woman they called Mother. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a modern apartment can be a prison, provided you have the keys to the soul. This is the story of the slave prophet. To understand the individual evil of Sarah Jew, you have to understand the psychology of the visa. She targeted digital natives, young, high IQ individuals from South Korea looking for Tier 1 opportunities in New York. In criminal psychology, we analyze coercive altruism. Jew built an archive of debt. She would offer to help these immigrants with their legal paperwork and their living arrangements. She told them that their individual will was a barrier to God's plan. She convinced them to hand over their passports and their social security cards for safekeeping. By 2019, she had created a total institution inside a series of rental properties. They weren't just followers, they were assets. She replaced their life archive with a work schedule, forcing them to work in her janitorial and home health businesses, while she funneled their entire wages into her private bank accounts. How do you keep a healthy adult from walking out of a New York apartment? You use biological enclosure. Jew implemented the archive of deprivation. In forensic profiling, we look at sensory erasure. Followers were forced to sleep on the floor. Their food was strictly monitored, often restricted to one meal of rice and water if they disobeyed. She used sleep deprivation to keep their cognitive load at a permanent state of exhaustion. If an individual tried to leave, she used spiritual blackmail, telling them that their families in Korea would be cursed or that the demons of New York would swallow them whole. She wasn't just a leader, she was a biological warden who used the noise of the city as a wall for her private prison. The archive cracked open in early 2023. A young man who had been an individual asset for Jew for 5 years managed to steal his passport back while Jew was sleeping in her luxury New Jersey penthouse. He fled to a local precinct. His testimony provided the forensic anchor. He described a massacre of the spirit. He told detectives that Jew had erased his name, forcing him to go by a religious pseudonym. The NYPD launched a total tactical audit. They used financial forensics to track the millions of dollars Jew had stolen from her slaves. They found she was using the money to buy $10,000 handbags and luxury real estate, while her family was sharing a single bathroom in a Queens basement. In the interview room and the 2023 trial, Sarah Jew didn't act like a human trafficker. She acted like a martyr. Watch her body language in the trial clips. She uses soft-focus narcissism. She smiled at the survivors as they testified against her. She told the court that she was training them for the mission field and that the hardships were part of their spiritual archive. In forensic linguistics, we look at her use of the word sacrifice. She used a holy term to justify a criminal crime, attempting to turn the archive of the law into a religious persecution. The prosecutor: "Ms. Jew, why did you take their money? Why did you beat them?" Jew, in a soft, melodic voice: "I was protecting them from the greed of the world. The money was for the mission. The discipline was for their souls. You see a crime, I see a calling." In late 2023, Heeun Jew, Sarah Jew, was convicted of human trafficking, forced labor, and grand larceny. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison. She is currently 54 years old. She will spend the archive of her prime behind the very bars she once used on others. Her case led to a total strategic overhaul of how the NYPD monitors religious visas and Bible study groups in the immigrant community. She proved that an individual can use the language of dreams to hide a nightmare of reality. Heeun Jew used sacrifice to hide her evil. But our next individual didn't need a basement. He used a Gulf Stream jet and the laughter of a bayou. In our next case, we look at a modern prophet who told his low-income followers that Jesus wouldn't ride a donkey today. He asked them to buy him a $54 million private jet, while the archive of his lifestyle revealed an individual who viewed God's favor as a license for infinite greed.
Case 8. Jesse Duplantis, the jet-set prophet. In the 21st century, the archive of faith is no longer kept in dusty Bibles. It's kept in flight logs and bank statements. In the Louisiana archive of the modern era, Jesse Duplantis is the sovereign of the skyways. He is a man who turned a Cajun personality into a multi-million-dollar individualized theology. He tells his followers, many of whom live in the shadow of the poverty line, that God is a billionaire and that the prophet must reflect that wealth to be effective. He has built a life of total fiscal insulation, living in the largest house in his parish while claiming his primary residence is in the kingdom of heaven. But the forensic archive reveals a predator of the cognitive gap, an individual who uses humor to mask a systematic extraction of wealth from the vulnerable. Tonight, we look at the individual evil of Jesse Duplantis, the jet-set prophet. To understand the individual evil of Jesse Duplantis, you have to understand the psychology of the jester. Unlike the Bling bishop or the midnight angel, Duplantis uses laughter as his primary shield. In criminal psychology, we analyze cognitive bypassing. By being funny, by being the uncle from the bayou, Duplantis shuts down the threat detection center of the human brain. When a person is laughing, they aren't analyzing the archive of the ask. He tells funny stories about his childhood to build an archive of trust, only to pivot to a demand for currency. He isn't just a preacher, he is a psychological distractor who uses the noise of joy to hide the signal of exploitation. He has turned lifestyle Christianity into a subscription service where the only person getting rich is the one on the stage. In 2018, the archive of Duplantis reached a peak of audacity. He already owned 3 private jets, all paid for by his followers, but he told his congregation that God had appeared to him with a new instruction. God wanted him to have a Falcon 7X. The price tag? $54 million. This is the individual evil of metaphysical extortion. He told his followers, people who were struggling to pay their electricity bills, that Jesus wouldn't ride a donkey today. He used the archive of the Bible to justify a luxury that only the top 0.01% of humanity can afford. In forensic profiling, we look at narcissistic entitlement. He didn't ask for a jet for his ministry. He asked for a jet because his ego couldn't handle being passed by other televangelists in the sky. He used cognitive load to make his followers feel that their own blessings were tied to his aviation archive. Why is Duplantis so wealthy? Because he is a master of the bureaucratic blind spot. In 2021, a forensic audit of the St. Charles Parish property records revealed the architecture of the loophole. In criminal finance, we analyze institutional parasitism. Duplantis lives in a 35,000 square foot mansion, but because it is registered as a parsonage, a home for a minister, he pays 0 property taxes. The local community loses hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue every year for their schools and roads, while Duplantis sits in a 25-car garage. He has turned the archive of the law into his private piggy bank, proving that in the Tier 1 markets of the West, the religious shield is more effective than any offshore account. In the archive of the con, the interrogation happens through the direct question. When reporters ask him why he needs 4 jets, his deception archive is revealed. Watch his micro-expressions of contempt in the 2024 interviews. He doesn't answer the question, he attacks the premise. He tells the reporter that they don't understand the spirit or that they are jealous of God's favor. In forensic linguistics, this is aggressive deflection.
He uses his Cajun jester mask to hide a lethal arrogance. He believes that as the sovereign individual of his ministry, he is not accountable to the archive of the public. Reporter: Jesse, you asked for $54 million from people who are poor. How is that godly? Duplantis, laughing loudly: God told me to believe for it. If you don't have the faith to see a jet, you don't have the faith to see a miracle. I'm just a pilot for the Almighty. Jesse Duplantis is currently 75 years old. He is still on his stage. He is still in his mansion. He has never been convicted of a crime. He is the grand finale of the aviation prophet. He proved that an individual can use humor and high-speed travel to hide a systematic erasure of communal wealth. He turned the word into a flight manual, and his name remains a permanent warning in the archive of those who believe that God's only concern is the altitude of his prophets. Jesse Duplantis used a jet to hide his evil, but our next individual didn't need an airplane. He used the 700 Club and the African diamond mine. In the 1990s, one of the most powerful men in the world claimed he was using his Operation Blessing charity to help the starving in Rwanda. But as the archive of the log was revealed, it turned out his cargo planes weren't carrying food. They were carrying equipment for his private diamond mines, operated in partnership with a lethal dictator.
Case 9. Pat Robertson, the Diamond Prophet.
In the 20th century, the archive of influence was built on the airwaves. No individual understood the psychology of the screen better than Pat Robertson. He was the patriarch of Virginia Beach, the founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network, and a man who advised U.S. presidents on the archive of moral values. He built an empire worth over $1 billion, preaching a message of divine stewardship. But in the mid-1990s, while the world was focused on his grandfatherly smile, a dark parallel was emerging in the war-torn heart of Africa. The archive of his non-profit charity, Operation Blessing, reveals a terrifying, individualized prophet loop. A man who used the sobs of refugees as a mask for the scrape of shovels in a private diamond mine. Tonight, we look at the individual who proved that a mission of mercy can be the perfect logistical front for a double life of diamonds. This is the story of the Diamond Prophet. To understand the individual evil of Pat Robertson, you have to understand the psychology of the daily guest. For 40 years, Robertson was in the living rooms of millions of Americans every morning. In criminal psychology, we analyze institutional familiarity. Robertson built an archive of trust that made him nearly invisible to criticism. He was the moral compass for a Tier 1 audience. He used this status to found Operation Blessing, a non-profit designed to provide disaster relief. To his followers, it was a vessel of God. To Robertson, it was a logistical resource. He understood that in the chaos of a global crisis, no one checks the cargo logs of a charity plane. He had discovered a sovereign loophole, using tax-exempt donations to build the infrastructure for his own private sovereign archive in the Congo. The Rwandan genocide. 2 million people fled into neighboring Zaire. It was the greatest humanitarian emergency of the decade. Pat Robertson took to the airwaves. He begged his followers to give to Operation Blessing to save the dying. In forensic profiling, we look at tragedy exploitation. Robertson used the cognitive load of the genocide to create a sense of urgency. He sent 3 large cargo planes to the region. He told his audience that these planes were medical lifelines. But when the planes arrived in Goma, the archive of evidence revealed a different mission. The pilots, recruited from the Tier 1 military community, reported that the planes were 90% full of heavy mining equipment, dredges, pumps, and sifting tables. While people were dying of cholera just miles away, Robertson's charity was focused on resource extraction.
The archive cracked open when the paper trail reached Virginia Beach. It was revealed that Robertson had founded a for-profit entity called the African Development Company. Robertson had formed a personal covenant with Mobutu Sese Seko, the brutal dictator of Zaire. Mobutu gave Robertson the exclusive mining rights to a massive territory. In return, Robertson used his 700 Club pulpit to archive a positive image of the dictator to the American public. This is geopolitical prostitution, using spiritual influence to protect a tyrant in exchange for biological wealth. The individual evil here is the devaluation of human life. For Robertson, the diamonds were the signal. The refugees were just the noise. The archive reached its forensic peak in 1997 when the pilots finally spoke. Robert Hinkle, a lead pilot for Operation Blessing, went to the Virginian Pilot newspaper. Hinkle provided the archive of logs. He revealed that over a 6-month period, only 1 out of every 10 flights carried actual relief supplies. The rest were mining runs for Robertson's private company. This is logistical theft. When the state of Virginia launched an audit of the soul, Robertson didn't apologize. Prosecutor, archive summary. Pat, you used non-profit resources for a profit diamond mine. How do you explain that? Robertson, archived response. I was building a business to fund more good work. The world doesn't understand the complexities of the mission. My hands are clean. In forensic linguistics, we look at altruistic reframing. He attempted to turn a lethal betrayal into a strategic investment, believing that his archive of past good deeds made him immune to the current truth. Pat Robertson died on June 8, 2023, at the age of 93. He died a billionaire. He was never charged with a crime. He is the grand finale of the geopolitical prophet. He proved that an individual can use the visual authority of a TV screen to hide an international plunder. He turned a non-profit into a shadow corporation, and his name remains a permanent stain in the archive of those who believe that God's work is done in a diamond pit. He died as he lived, a man who owned the archive of the truth, until the history books finally opened the archive of the logs. Pat Robertson used a genocide to hide his evil, but our final individual didn't need a war. He used a small town in Colorado and a secret history of addiction. In our final case, we look at the man who was the advisor to presidents, the Pope of the evangelicals, until one single phone call revealed an archive of sin so shocking that it brought down an entire city's economy in 48 hours.
Case number 10, Ted Haggard, the President's Prophet. Every archive has a final chapter, a case that proves the mask of a prophet can be so perfect that it can fool the highest offices of power. In the early 2000s, Colorado Springs was the evangelical Vatican, and Ted Haggard was its pope. He was the founder of New Life Church, a 14,000-member powerhouse. He was the president of the National Association of Evangelicals, representing 30 million people. He had a direct line to the White House. He was the individual icon of American morality, preaching a relentless message against secular decay. But while he was advising presidents on the archive of traditional values, he was secretly building his own private archive, a world of illicit substances and secret meetings in Denver motels. Tonight, we close the Holy Double Life archive with the most dramatic collapse in modern history. This is the story of the President's Prophet. To understand the individual evil of Ted Haggard, you have to understand the psychology of the gatekeeper.
In the mid-2000s, religion and politics were merged into a single strategic archive. Haggard was the bridge. Every Monday, he participated in conference calls with the West Wing. In criminal psychology, we analyze moral superiority as a cloak. Haggard was the most vocal opponent of the very life he was secretly living. He championed the archive of purity, telling his followers that sin was a disease. He wasn't just a preacher, he was a legislative architect, pushing for laws that mirrored his pulpit. But the cognitive load of his double life was generating a massive psychological heat. He was a man living in two different dimensions, and the border between them was about to be breached by a single phone call from a man named Mike Jones. The archive cracked open on a Thursday morning. Mike Jones, a man from Denver, went to a local radio station with a story that paralyzed the state of Colorado. He claimed that for 3 years, the most powerful evangelical leader in America had been his private client. Jones didn't just have a story, he had the archive of proof. He had voicemail recordings. He had descriptions of the motel rooms. He stated that Haggard had been using illegal stimulants to fuel his secret life. This is the individual evil of mass hypocrisy. Haggard had spent decades making people feel inadequate for their flaws, while he was systematically engaging in the very behaviors he used to raise millions of dollars. This is the most studied deception archive in forensic linguistics. For the first 24 hours, Haggard didn't just deny the story, he corrected it. Watch his 2006 driveway interview. He uses distancing language. He says, "I don't know that person." He smiles, a classic duper's delight micro-expression, believing that his public archive of goodness would make him indictment-proof. Reporter: "Ted, did you buy substances from Mike Jones?" Haggard, laughing nervously: "I don't even know who that is. I bought some massage oil once, that's all. This is just an attack on our church." He tried to frame the truth as a persecution, but within hours, the evidence became a flood. The NAE fired him. His church board placed him under archive investigation. The mask was gone. On November 4th, the president's prophet released a letter to his church. He didn't use the word crime, he used the word immorality. He confessed to being a deceiver and a liar. He admitted to his secret meetings and his archive of compulsion. This is the narcissistic full stop. When the social capital of his career was gone, he retreated into the identity of the penitent. He agreed to a spiritual restoration program, a private 3-year archive of healing that the public was never allowed to see. Ted Haggard is the grand finale of our holy double life archive. He is still alive today, running a small house church in Colorado. He has never fully reclaimed his throne. He proved that in the 21st century, the most dangerous individual is not the one with the gun, but the one with the infallible voice. He turned a city into a fortress of faith, only to reveal that the fortress was built on a foundation of individualized deceit. The Holy Double Life Archive is now closed. We have seen the Bling bishop, the celebrity Rockstar, the baby snatcher, and the prophet. Each of them left a mark on the human spirit. Each of them proved that no matter how loud the word of God is spoken, the archive of the soul never lies. The archive is closed, but the voices of the past are still whispering. Sleep well if you can.